Alright guys, g'day and welcome to another video. We're here in Brisbane getting ready, ramping up for the Brisbane Caravan Super Show next week at the Brizzy Showground. So if you're around in Brisbane area, come and say g'day. We'll be there from the 6th to the 11th on site 2735. I think it is. The Sunseeker Vision stand, Titanium's going to be there. We're going to have our caravan on display for you to come and check out. Come and see it in the flesh and come and say g'day. We'd love to meet as many of you as possible. It's one of our favourite things about doing what we do is meeting all of you guys out there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing, I don't know, when you have YouTube, you sort of interact via messages, but when you see someone face to face, it's just so much better. I love it. We absolutely love meeting people. So please say hello.
Love putting faces to all those names that we see all the time on our socials. So thank you for that. As always, we donate 10% of our revenue from this channel to charity, and this month, for the month of June, we're doing the push-up challenge.
This is day 2.
Yeah.
It's still wobbly.
Yeah, so it's feeling a bit sore already. We've only just kicked into it, we just started, but yeah, if you want to jump on and support our push-up challenge, we are raising money and awareness for Movember, for mental health and suicide prevention. Every dollar counts. Anything you can do really does help us out. There is a link in the description below this video for you to go over and do that, or jump onto the push-up challenge website, search for the Lifestyle Pioneers and find us on there. Anything, as I said, anything you can contribute, we really would appreciate. This video, we thought we'd take the opportunity while we're parked up for a little bit to share with you some of our tips of what we've learned over the last couple of years of traveling around Australia, and we came up with 8 of them. So we're going to call
That's all we've got.
So we're going to call this the top 8 tips that we've got for you for if you're looking at doing some travel around the country.
All right, so what we've learned is that there is a huge difference between having signal and having data, and that plays a huge role in how long you're going to stay somewhere with what you've got on workload-wise. So I'll let Simon explain the difference to you and what you need to be looking for.
Yeah, so it's just a fact of life these days that our needs for data and internet are increasing, as well as phone signal. Sure, we all love to go camping, get off the grid and get away from it all, but if you're going to be traveling long term, chances are at some point or another you're going to want to have that connection. And like Liz said, there's a big difference between phone signal and data speeds in particular. You can have 4 bars of 5G, or full service of 4 or 5G, and have virtually no internet, and vice versa. You can have hardly any signal, maybe only 2 bars, and have fantastic internet. Also, we find towns where you expect to have really good signal and really good internet aren't really there, and places that we think are going to be rubbish and have nothing, we've strangely got reasonable service or good service. So I guess the message is there. Before we set off, we thought it was going to be really predictable and really sort of obvious where we would be able to get good access to internet and data and where we wouldn't. Turns out it's pretty random. If you want to know more about how we do go about finding internet as we travel around the country, we did do a video all about that as part of our off-grid series pretty recently, so I'll leave a link for that in the description below. It's also just up there in the corner if you want to click over to that after you finish watching this video and go and learn all about that.
Yeah, and just one more tip on that is that Starlink is not the answer everywhere. Absolutely, it solves a lot of problems in some places, but it is by no means a one unit fixes all. No. And we talk about that in that video.
Yeah, there's no silver bullet.
Yeah, don't think Starlink will fix it.
Yeah. Okay, so next up is what gear is worth spending a reasonable amount of money on and buying good quality. There's a few things that we reckon just aren't worth skimping on that you'll end up regretting. It's a case of buy once, cry once. While you don't have to have the best of everything, it is worth spending decent money on a few key items. Number 1, we reckon, is tyres. Tyres are really worthwhile spending good money on. There is a big difference between quality tyres and cheap tyres. You don't have to spend the earth, but do go and buy your tyres from one of the reputable brands. There's a heap of them out there. We don't recommend any one particularly, but spending money on decent tyres will save you a whole lot of hurt, and you rely on them every day, every time you travel, so don't skimp on tyres. Yeah,
the next one is camp chairs. You spend so much time in them because they become your lounge room. Get yourself a decent one. Make sure the kids have got a comfy one as well, because if they don't, they're going to steal yours and then you're going to be sitting in theirs, or, it's just going to be arguments. We absolutely love ours. I used to have a big Moon one, super comfy but not really practical for getting in and out of the caravan. So, yeah, the ones we've got now, love them. Worth it every cent.
Yeah, you want them to be comfortable. You also want them to be relatively lightweight. They need to be relatively compact when you pack them up, and they need to look good too, because they're a big part of your setup. So
you finally come round. So I'm like, I don't care what they look like. I'm like, I do. I have to see them every day.
Not my main criteria, but we love those Stratus ones that we got late last year. They've been fantastic, and I've had a few long Arvos in the recliner too. They're good fun.
Yeah, more than I have actually.
Yeah, and the kids love playing with them as well. The next one that we reckon is worth buying decent quality is hats. You're out in the sun a lot. Obviously, you're traveling outdoors, hiking, whether it's beach days, whatever it might be. Buy yourself a decent hat. We love our Kubras. We're not associated with the Kubra at all. No affiliation. But I've got the Riverina and Liz has got the Traveller. And decent hats for the kids as well. Wide brim hats. We like ones with drawstrings or the one that goes around your neck, or the one that tightens up on the head so that it stays on, particularly when it's a little bit windy. And they also hide bad hair days, which is more often than not. You'll notice I'm always wearing a hat, or nearly always wearing a hat, and that is one of the big reasons why.
Recovery gear is another thing you do not want to skimp on. When you need it, you need it. You need it to be reliable, and you need it to be in good working order, because chances are by the time you've got your recovery gear out, it's already a bit of a sticky and stressful situation. So you want to make sure you've got the right gear. Do not skimp on it. Yeah, number one item we'd recommend is recovery boards, treads or max tracks. We've used both. They're both good quality. Don't buy the cheap eBay ones. And probably just a strap and some shackles as well. But self-recovery, if you're going to travel in a similar way to how we do, you definitely want to be able to get yourself out of most situations at least. We've never had a winch, and it'd be handy, but they're heavy. So make your own decision on that. But some way of self-recovery is vital. So the next thing that we don't reckon it's worth skimping on is your emergency gear. Quality first aid kits, quality emergency communication. Again, like the recovery gear, when it's time to use it, you don't want it to fail on you. You want it to be quick and easy to access, but also reliable and ready to go as soon as you need it. So we use a PLB, and we've got survival first aid kits, which we love because they're durable and easy to access and find everything in them. They're just really well laid out. Again, we've done a whole video on safety and security off-road as part of our off-grid series. So if you want to know more about what we carry and why, and our opinions on a few different bits of gear that are out there for that, head over and watch that one at the end of this one too if you haven't seen that already. All right, lastly, in the gear that we don't recommend skimping on is roadside assistance. Make sure that you've got a roadside assistance package that suits your needs for whatever it is, however you are traveling. If you're towing, make sure it covers your trailer or caravan or whatever it is that you're towing. All of them, as far as I know, are Australia-wide, so we go through NRMA because our home state's New South Wales, but whatever it is that suits you, the main thing is just to make sure that roadside assistance is the right level and the right package to suit your setup and what the trip you're going to be doing. We've used ours a number of times. It's well and truly paid for itself over and over and over again.
Maybe, I don't know if I'd go that far, but we've had battery issues with the Ranger before, as many of you would remember, and we've had to have that battery replaced and had call-outs for battery with dead battery issues. So even just relatively simple things like that, or running out of fuel and basic stuff, right through to sort of when you need to get a tow and stuff like that, it's really worth having that top level or that high level of roadside assistance cover. It's very cheap insurance. All right, so the flip side of that is, what is the gear that we don't recommend buying, or gear that we'd recommend holding off on until you're traveling for a bit and see whether you actually think you need it or not. The first one is walls and annexes and different things for your awning for your caravan, or if you've got an awning off the side of your vehicle or something like that. We've never carried an annex for our awning. They're bulky, they're heavy, they're a pain to put up and take down, and we just don't think you really need them. So hold off on that, we reckon. Same with anti-flap kits and things like that. I just think that they're not worth it. But see how you go. You might decide you want one later, but you can always pick one up down the track.
Something else we've never purchased is an outdoor table. We just don't use one. So, yes, they'd be nice to have, but they're also bulky, heavy, and extra things to pack up. You can buy one later if you want one.
We've got the fold-down table off the side of the caravan. We've got the tailgate as well off of the Ranger, often gets used as a table. Depending on your setup, they may be more helpful or not, but we find with the van, it just, like Liz says, adds to the complexity of our setup, and it's just one more thing to set up and put away.
Kids' toys, don't go overboard. Seriously, just a few very basics. Yes, I would recommend bikes. Yes, I would recommend some sort of soccer ball and some sort of colouring in stuff. That's probably about it. kids will find each other, they'll play, and they will just love playing with rocks, sticks, and being outdoors. So if you need it, you buy it later.
Yep. Don't forget there's shops around the country.
Yeah.
And lastly, gear that we recommend holding off on that we just don't know that you necessarily need is fire pits. They're becoming really, really popular, and we do really like the idea of them. We might get one in the near future because we no longer carry a barbecue. We're changing our setup a little bit and how we cook outdoors. So we might look at one now, but certainly not something that's a must-have by any means. There aren't that many places in the country where you have to have one to have a fire. And in those places where, so be it, we just won't have a fire. Again, they're bulky. They're not too heavy, I suppose, these days. A lot of lightweight ones getting around, but they're just not necessary. You might, again, it's something you might find down the track you decide to grab, but not something it's a must-have before you leave. But if you are having a ground fire, quick rant here, don't make new fire pits. Use existing fire pits if they're there. The amount of campsites we've been to where there's just fire pits scattered everywhere, some almost to the point where you can't even find somewhere to pull up and camp without camping on, near, or right next to a fire pit because they're just everywhere. I don't understand why people feel the need to continually make new fire pits, whether there's a badge of honour to it or something like that, but I don't know who does it. But yeah, just use an existing fire pit. Don't destroy the landscape and destroy the environment any more than we need to. Let's minimise your impact.
Pristine place in Tasmania, and there would have been a fire pit every 2 metres apart.
Oh,
it was
crazy.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and destroys the look of the campsite if nothing else.
Yeah.
Anyway, rant over. So the next big lesson that we've learned after the last couple of years of travelling is that no matter what you do, everything is a compromise.
Absolutely.
When it comes to your setup or the gear you carry, whatever it might be, whether it's weight, whether it's budget, whether it's practicality, whether it's function, whether it's looks, something you will always have to compromise on no matter what you choose. Don't feel like you've got to have all the gear and all the best of everything. I know it can look like that and it might seem like a contradiction from us when we've got quite a lot of nice gear, but this is stuff that we've built up over time. We live on the road. It's also our business, so our needs and our purchasing decisions are a little bit different, I guess, to a lot of people's, but yeah, it's again, don't feel like you've got to have all that. If you've got just the basics, just get off and get out there and explore. There's no perfect setup. There's just the perfect setup for you and the perfect gear for you.
Absolutely. And we've been to some places where there's just the oldest setups with just the very basics. And you know what? We're all sitting enjoying the same sunset.
Hopefully the sound's not too bad with old mate next door. This is the joys of trying to film in a city, hey?
So the next lesson we've learned on the road is do not underestimate how much rubbish you produce and how much waste you create. Think about your red bins and your recycling bins at home. How much rubbish do you currently make? And then transform that to a caravan. How are you going to minimize that? How are you going to store it? And how are you going to get rid of it? We've got a whole video coming up on our off-grid series going through our setup, what our tips and tricks for that are. Keep an eye out for that one, but do not underestimate that how much you're going to produce and what you're going to do with it, because no one wants to have it in the environment and no one wants it in their car.
Yeah, and bins are actually a lot of the time quite hard to come by, particularly bins big enough to be able to get rid of a decent amount of rubbish. They aren't just a little bin in a park or something like that.
Lid, you know, the ones that just flip like that.
Yeah, so you really got to really think about, you really want to be thinking about how you're going to carry your rubbish and store that rubbish, because you might have to store more than you think. I mean, if you're only going away for a weekend, it's probably not too bad, but if you're going to be traveling for longer than that, you really want to think about your rubbish management and how you're going to manage that waste, particularly if you're going to free camp as well, like we do. Generally, they don't have bins and it's leave no trace, take out what you took in. So you do need to have a good rubbish solution. All right, so a few of these lessons we've learned the hard way, and this is definitely one of them, and that is bugs and insects. They are everywhere, and they will get in no matter what. You can do your best to try and stop them, and we recommend doing that, making sure you got midgie screens in particular for when you're up in the tropics. But you know, obviously you got to make sure you got good insect screens. Just be aware they will get in to your setup no matter what. Every time you open a door or unzip something, they're going to get in. But yeah, having bug reduced lighting helps, like the orange lights on the outside of your setup, and then well, our little trick for getting rid of them once they are inside, if you've got a little vacuum, like we use a battery vacuum, and you can just vacuum up the bugs and it stops them smearing around, and it means that you don't have to try and catch them. You don't have to spray sprays. We don't like to spray sprays around inside our home.
Especially when you've got the windows closed because there's bugs outside.
Yeah, so just accept that there are going to be bugs, but there are a couple of things you can do to make sure that you're not too affected. Repellent's number one, I mean, for the mosquitoes and stuff.
And have it everywhere. Have it in your backpack, have it in your day bag, have it in your beach bag, have it in your car, have it in your caravan, because we've been caught out so many times where we haven't had it and it completely ruins the travel. Because if your kids are whinging and crying that they're being bitten by midges and sandflies, you're going to leave.
Yeah.
You're not, Winjana Gorge is a perfect example of that. The horseflies, they were insane.
Yeah.
And we had nothing on us and we ended up bailing on it, which is crazy. Do not underestimate bugs, insects, and bites. And again, come back to having all your first aid sorted.
And following on from that, make sure you got stingos and soothe creams and things like that for the kids, particularly if they're like ours and react to bites quite a lot.
Liquid antihistamines are also really good. You can get them from pharmacists.
For the kiddos, yeah. So, making sure you're just aware that there's going to be bugs everywhere you go, and there's just a few things you can do to minimise them, but you're always going to have them. We do know a lot of people that use thermocells and those sort of devices as well. We've never actually tried one out to know how good they are, but some people swear by them. Some people reckon they don't do anything, but maybe consider that if you're really worried about it. But yeah. All right, the next big lesson we learned was travel flexibility and how fast we travel. We definitely overdid it in our first year and we got travel exhaustion. It's a real thing, and we just burnt ourselves out almost and had to have a solid break just to catch up. And also we've learned that the more flexible we are, the more we enjoy travel. The less we got booked in, the better it feels and the better it goes.
Yeah, and there's always going to be something that pegs you to a date, like it might be a wedding or a booking for a ferry to Tasmania or something like that. The fewer of those that you can have, the better. Yeah, because you're always constantly evaluating how long you can stay in a place, because, you might have 60 days, but in that 60 days, you want to get from here to there, and you're not sure, this is an awesome spot, but can I afford the time to stay here if I have to be there on that day to catch that flight or that event? So the less you can have booked in, the more flexible you become, the more you relax and explore right into an area. And we just prefer that. And it's a way less stressful. So, yeah. And there's just so many benefits to it. Yeah, you can be flexible. Be flexible.
And we covered it off in our off-grid series, and it's one of our favourite things about having a decent off-grid setup is that it allows us to stay more flexible as well.
So a lot of the decisions we made with this van were about being flexible. It was about looking at what draws us back to civilization and how can we reduce that. So, go through that in the walk around a little bit more, but being flexible is just something we just cannot be big enough advocates for. Yeah, so the other thing I'll say is a lot of people before they go, they want to know all the best places and have their trip completely planned out with all their campsites. Don't over-research. That's just way too overwhelming. Get yourself the WikiCamps app. Pick a general direction that follows the seasons. Like, you want to be up north in the winter, down south in the summers, sort of, chasing the sun, so to speak, for a lot of places and for a lot of people anyway. Point in a direction and then just open WikiCamps the day before you're leaving, which is what we do. Scan for your favourites and just join the dots basically of what looks good and how far you want to travel for that day. And the other thing I'll quickly say on WikiCamps there is whenever you do get a hot tip from a traveller is open the app, get it out then and there and save those as favourites. And then, after a few months, you will have this map with love hearts all over it. You won't have to plan, and you just think about all the time you wasted looking at the internet and trying to pick campsites, and it's just way easier to do it there and then on the spot based on how you're feeling.
Yeah, as far as research goes, by far the place we get the most information from is from other travellers and from locals, and that's the sort of stuff you can't research before you leave. So sure, like Liz says, have a rough direction and a rough idea of where you want to go and what you want to see, but don't feel the need to over-research. And what I'd say on the seasons as well is don't be afraid to go in shoulder season. Don't feel like you've got to be everywhere in peak season. The advantages are that obviously everything's less busy. Generally, the weather's almost as good, if not just as good. We think shoulder season is by far the best way to go. We just sort of did it by accident and learnt this lesson in our first year of travel. We were a bit late getting up to the Kimberley and going through the Gib. And yeah, it was actually silver lining was the best thing we ever did was travel late because everything was quieter. I'm sure there was a little bit less water around and things like that in the waterfalls, but we still think for the compromise, well worth it.
Hikes is something that we wish we knew more about when we were much younger. So Simon and I have been travelling for
a long time.
A lot of years. And I just think back to when we were in our 20s. We were younger, fitter, and a lot more capable, like not hindered by children and their abilities in hiking. And we would read the description signs of some of these iconic hikes and we would think, oh no, that's like for the Red Bull climbers. You know, if it says grade 5 experienced hikers only.
For the who?
The Red Bull hikers, you know, like the extreme athletes of the world.
Oh, Red Bull hike? I didn't know Red Bull had hikers.
I don't know if they do either.
Extreme hiking.
No, sorry. So
the super experienced hikers.
The super experienced hikers, like I picture when something says grade 5 experienced hikers only, I picture those like Patagonia ads where someone's hanging off a cliff and like shimmying along. That's not always the case. And I think we missed so many places when we were younger and didn't have the kids because we were turned off by the hikes. What we did this time is we've just pushed ourselves a little bit and started, you know, with the grade 3. Yep, that's easy. We can do that. All right, let's see what the grade 4s are like. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, this is easily manageable for us. All right, what's a grade 5 look like? Okay, yeah, we can do that as long as it's not too long. And taking into consideration the duration of the hike as the recommended guide versus the grade, that'll give you a much better indicator. But what I really want to sum up there is don't be put off by the signs. Have a go. There's no harm if you get to something that is not capable for you. Obviously be aware of your own capabilities. Turn around and go back. Some of the best places are on the journey. It's not always the end destination. And yeah, don't miss things because you've been put off by the signs. Yeah,
and I think the other thing with those grading systems is that it could be one little section of the hike that's grade 5 and the whole hike will be graded grade 5. So like Liz is saying, you don't necessarily have to get to the end to get a lot out of the hike or to really enjoy it and see the place. So don't feel like the grade 5 means the whole hike is going to be climbing up rocks and over rocks. So get out there. I think the main lesson there for us is we just wish we'd had a crack more and didn't get scared off by the signs that tell you that, you know, experienced hikers only and things like that. Just have a crack, start walking. If it's too much, like Liz said, there's nothing wrong with turning around and going back. So I think the main lesson is have a crack. Just get out there and enjoy it. It's really disappointing when we see so many travellers that pull up in the car park, read the sign, get back in their car and drive away because they've obviously decided it's too big or not for them.
Yeah.
Just go for a bit.
And especially with little kids, like if it's a 4K hike and you know your kids can only do 1K, just do 1K of it. Turn around and come back. You'll still see more than if you just sat in the car.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you only get better if you practice.
Okay, so we do have a couple of random tips that we couldn't really fit into a category, so these are just some bonus ones. Let's got a couple for you for your hair care.
Not that anyone should take hair care advice from me, but dry shampoo is going to be your best friend, along with that hat. So that'll get you a lot of places. And the other thing I'll say on your hair is brush your hair before you jump in the shower, before you go to wash it, because it's just a fact, you're not going to wash your hair anywhere near as much. So when you do, you get a lot more hair fall, and you do not want that going down your drains. You'll have seen episodes where Simon had to clean the drains, and that's not great.
It's a fun episode. No. It's a fun time. Clean out the grey water, the grey water trap that's full of hair.
Yeah, dry shampoo and brush your hair before you wash it.
So we've got a couple of tips on clothing as well. Two things here. One is, you don't need anywhere near as much clothing as what you think. We got told this before we left, and we thought we were being really minimalist with our clothing, and I think we've probably cut it by half again or more since then. You really can get away with not a lot of clothing. Not saying
you sound like nudists.
Sorry, yeah. You don't need to take a whole wardrobe full of clothing. I'm not saying don't wear a lot, although some places this is the thing. You don't wear a lot because you're generally traveling in the warmer climates. You just don't need that many clothes. We'd spend money on fewer better quality clothes so they last, because you do find you wear them a lot. When we took a lot of clothes, you just found you wore the first few things that were in your wardrobe anyway, and the rest of it got buried at the back and never worn.
Yeah.
The other thing is don't buy white. White's a waste of time. Most of the country's dusty and dirty, and anything that's white that we had when we first left got trashed and left behind. Soil and Bone, our mates at Soil and Bone
these are awesome.
sent me a gift recently and sent me out some new gear, which is pretty awesome, and it is really good quality, but the main thing is the colours that they've brought it out in. These sorts of colours, like you'll see us wearing a lot of blue.
Earthy greens.
Yeah, greens, blues, reds, like those earthy colours, because they're just durable. They don't stain and they don't show the dirt as much, so they're just a bit more practical. Just any dark colours as much as we can. I know it sounds a bit drab and boring, but it's just practical.
Like you could put it with anything, if that makes sense, because you don't want a shirt that you have to have a certain pair of shorts to go with, to wear together, because that one pair of shorts you might not do washing for 2 weeks.
And our last random lesson here is just accept things will go wrong. The better prepared you are, the less stressful that'll be. But I think a lot of people go out there trying to eliminate anything going wrong. I think it's far better just to assume that something will go wrong and make sure you got the gear that you need when it does. Well, they say don't film with children and animals. I say don't film in cities either. Anyway, well, hopefully most of that audio worked out, and we hope you guys enjoyed all these lessons that we've learned over the last couple of years and got some advice there for yourselves.
Yeah, and any advice that you would give to other travellers, pop them in the comments below. We'd love to make this a resource for others. So Thanks so much for your time today, and we'll see you next Sunday. Yeah,
and don't forget to come and see us at the Brisbane Caravan and Camping Super Show, 6th to 11th of June at the Brizzy Showgrounds. Hope to see as many of you there as we can. And we'll see you next Sunday. Cheers.
See you Sunday.
Cheers, guys.